Why do we stay in unhealthy relationships for so long?
because we're
Why do we stay in unhealthy relationships for so long?
Is there?
I can only speak for myself, but I feel like based on how a lot of us are
Oh,
conditioned, we
yeah.
all gonna come with something.
Hold on, love. I think he was addressing me. But I appreciate your sermon, though. I will say this: some people just miss the signs. It's like you're going down it's like you're going through the highway of your life, and there are signs that are telling you to get off. And there are certain moments where um, you kind of see the signs of the inconsistencies, the lack of attention, the lack of effort, the lack of energy, just lack everywhere. And communication being the biggest part. One of the biggest lessons my father always taught me when I was much younger. He always said, "Lewis, communication is part of love. Without it, we don't have anything." You know what I'm saying? And that's very true because it shows up everywhere. All we do all day is communicate. Every single day, from the moment we wake up to the moment that we go to sleep, right? It's the biggest component. It's the glue in the nucleus that holds our society, our families, and communities together. It's that aspect of it. And without it, we become lost. Um, Unfortunately, when it comes to toxic relationships and them ending the way that they do, is that I think that there was a step in that communication about how people want to be addressed, how people want to have that person show up for them, right? And sometimes that gets lost in translation, and sometimes you need to check in with your person. I'm one of the biggest proponents about people checking in with their person. You know what I'm saying? Life be lifing sometimes. You don't know what's putting behind the scene. And sometimes people are too prideful, too secretive that they'll hold on to something that happened to them during the week, and they won't divulge it until it builds up until it gets out of control and it starts affecting the relationship in other aspects, right? Checking in with your person should be automatically. And sometimes don't even have to be a meeting or anything. You spend quality time. That's a form of communication and bonding, right? What is bothering you? What has happened? How can I fix it? Do you want me to listen or do you want me to provide guidance? I think those are the very important keys, especially when people are talking, right? Because especially for men, we're always trying to fix stuff. And at times this we don't need to fix. We just need to sit there and be present in the moment with them, right? And listen and hear them out, right? And that's a big component. Um, as far as the video is concerned, I'm curious to know what kind of relationship does she have with God. Was it something that she's had for a long time, or was it something at the tail end? What I sometimes find interesting is that when people get into the thick of things in their life, whether it's hardship, whether it's a loss of a family member, or whatever that situation may be, the end of their marriage, right? People insert God, but I'm always curious, where did God first presented to you in your life? Was it early in your marriage? Was it young enough, right? It couldn't be just at the end, because if that was the case, who was driving the car the whole time of your relationship, right? And, I'm curious to know, does she have a community of women who were married, who were talking to her about, what is she going through, and have a comfort circle about, how to navigate in her marriage when she gets through these rough patches, right? You can't thrive in a marriage without a thriving community who also support your marriage, who also wants to see you both grow, flourish, and love on each other in the good times, bad times, and etc. Because when the good times is good, all we could do is pop champagne bottles and dance to the tune. But when the tough time comes, we all have to, really, really dig in the trenches and be there with one another. Understand, lean on each other emotionally, right? And that's a big component. Learning how to sacrifice for one another. Marriage is all about sacrifice and duty. I was gonna get to that towards the end, but that's a big
Did you
component.
say sacrificing booty?
Sacrifice and duty.
Oh,
Also that's in there too, but you know that's 2 chapters later. Um, you know, the other thing that makes me wonder is like, you know, was that God that was talking to you? Because the devil is also listening all the time, and he's also willing to give you what you want when you call, right? So was it God in the beginning who introduced you to this man, who told you that this man comes from a good family, that he has a God and he's a good quality man? Or who was that introduced this man to you? Because all of a sudden God showed up at the end to tell you that he's not your man. So who was riding in the car the whole time? You know, I'm always curious to know when these things happen. You know, I would say there's one study. There's a study by the IFS, and it's the Institute for Family Studies, and they looked at and they what the IFS did. They looked at a case study of women who have had multiple partners, right? A high number of partners, and they looked at their ability, their fidelity to stay within the marriage, right? They found that those women had a high divorce rate. And then women who had a threshold of like 5 or less were least likely, you know what I'm saying, to get divorced. And the ones who had 0 to 1 had an extremely higher probability of a successful marriage, right? I understand that the sermon was added in the beginning about, you know, exploring and doing all these things. But what I tend to find is that when women talk about that, it's always in the sort of, you know, taking a trip out somewhere, you know, and dating a bunch of different random men that don't really, you know, come to you in the best of seasons, right? And sort of, I always wonder, what does that look like? Because it certainly isn't going to Bible study or reading or spending quality time reading by the oak tree outside by your backyard and, you know, writing in your books. It always looks like something else. Especially in this climate, it always looks like something else. And we know what that is. And unfortunately, you know, that always shows up in those patterns in your relationship later. Like, not at first, but a tiger never changes his spots. And I find it it would behoove me to think that people have done enough of the work before they gotten down the aisle. 15 years is a long time. 7 of it was married. You know, you think about the memories, the bonds, and everything that you created over that time period. You know, I'm gonna land by saying this: fathers, stay in your daughters' lives. I'm gonna say that one more time: fathers, stay in your daughters' lives. It's very important. You are the first man to show your daughter love and what it is to find someone who has the qualities and the traits that she will one day potentially find in a partner, right? There's a lot of outside influences that, you know, deviate people from what unionship and community looks like each and every day. The grass is not green on the other side, like the Brother King Talk said. The grass is green on the side in which you water and you nurture it every single day. So I yield right there.